Hello, I'm TJ Mahar. I've had a long career as a software tester. I've tested web and mobile applications for many different customer bases. People who want to trade documents securely, purchase fitness trackers, get incentives by managing their own health, or have their voice understood by voice recognition technology. I've been able to be quite successful in quickly understanding the customer base, deciphering what they perceive as quality. And do you know what my secret weapon is? Dungeons and Dragons. As a kid, I was always shy, gawky, awkward, and bookish. With friends who knew me really well, people who accepted my bookishness, I was fine. I was friendly, energetic, boisterous. But if you threw me in a room with a larger group, I would become a wallflower, unsure how to interact with the people around me. I had a hard time finding a peer group to belong to. But then, in 6th grade, I discovered Dungeons and Dragons. If you aren't familiar with this storytelling game, think of a character in a sword and sorcery epic. There's a wizard, a sorcerer, a knight, a pickpocket, a cat burglar. Is this character human? A stout dwarf? An elf? A hobbit? Sorry, copyright infringement. I mean halfling. What is this character's backstory that the players are creating? It doesn't have to be fully fleshed out. That's what the game is for. It can still just be a sketch. Is the character tall, short, thin, fat? What do other people notice when they look at the character? Imagine if you're playing with a game with 3 or 4 of your friends who also have designed characters. You now have an adventuring party of player characters. All you need is someone to describe the adventure. In elementary and middle school, I became the main storyteller, the dungeon master of the neighborhood. I'd get a group together, we'd play on my mom's back porch, and because the porch was screened in, we'd have to keep rocks nearby as paperweights, else a strong summer breeze would scatter our character sheets, graph paper, pencils, and dice all around. I'd research Greco-Roman myths, tales of the Norse gods, Irish myths and legends. With my own notes and pre-written scripts, I would improvise tales of adventure, situations their characters could then explore. The players would have to decide, what would the characters do in a certain situation? How would they respond? I could describe what their characters saw. I could make up non-player characters, NPCs who would travel with them or fight against them, but I always had to remember it was the players who were in charge. I may be the one setting up the story, but they were the heroes of the story. They had free will. Did their character really want to go on a quest, or would they rather start a bar fight at the local tavern instead? As a dungeon master, I would have to learn from what they wanted from their shared story, anticipate their needs. If a player designed a character to be a former knight who brought shame to their house and was seeking redemption for their family, I would take that idea and run with it. This was like a grand improvisation. I loved it. You could say that I was a bit of a nerd back then. Well, I'd say it was just a phase, but that would be a lie. You see, nerdy kids become nerdy adults. I moved from basic Dungeons and Dragons to Advanced Dungeons and Dragons 2nd edition when it came out in my junior year of high school back in 1989. I remember, as a computer science major, theater minor at Bridgewater State College, being so disappointed that instead of learning how to create computer games, we learnt Pascal and COBOL. How much fun was that? I missed my high school gaming group so much. Back in 1992 at Bridgewater State, I formed the Adventure Role-Playing Club, just so I could hang out with more nerds. We managed to actually get funding, our own office space, t-shirts. It was pretty good. I did manage to create computer games in college after a fashion, as a member of 2 text-based virtual communities, these multi-user simulation environments, Micromuse out of MIT and Maramuse out of Phoenix College in Arizona. I dusted off an old high school AD&D character, Miffin Sharon, the Mad Mage of Greyhawk City, and turned him into a text-based life form. I'd create these villages and castles that others could explore, magic wands and other items players could use. I'd branch out and create text-based adventures based on Edgar Allan Poe's MS Found in a Bottle, the Follow the House of the Usher, or the Cask of Amontillado. Yeah, those were good times. When I ran out of money for my school, my junior year of college, I took survival jobs in food service, scooping ice cream at Friendly's Ice Cream, then working at Walmart's snack bar, putting chili on chili dogs. After a few years of doing this, I vowed I would find any job in the computer field and take what I could get. A recruiting company placed me in a short-term contract as a software tester a month later. Let me tell you, with software testing, or software quality assurance, as they call it here in Boston, I fell in love with it immediately. I could use all my creativity to find bugs. I would print out stacks of documentation and read them until the wee hours of the morning to figure out how the business analysts and the managers thought the product should work, as if I was doing research for a new adventure campaign. What were the initial requirements? How did they evolve over time? I would chart out the history of the project as if it was half-forgotten lore, and I excitedly revealed my findings to management. I would print out the design specifications and study them as if they were a lost scroll, and then compare them how the product actually looked. I'd chart out an adventure that I myself would take. Instead of exploring a new land, I would be exploring the product itself. Sure, it didn't involve doing programming back when I started, but it was still technical enough to keep me interested. And when the industry switched over to the agile software development model, I loved it even more. Before agile, this is how software development would work. A team of business analysts, after spending a lot of time scoping out what customers wanted, they would have a lengthy debate about the features that would be needed. Eventually, they came into agreement and would sign off on the project. Software architects would then examine and sign off on the plan, that it would be handed to designers who would then debate about what it should look like and sign off on that. Software developers would then develop the product, and while that was happening, senior software testers would then write hundreds of pages about what and how features would need to be tested. And in the very last few months before the release of the product, both the paperwork and the product would be tossed over the wall and land on the software tester's lap. Agile software development broke down these barriers. I remember working in my first Agile environment back in 2006. Agile empowered employees, all of them, developer and tester alike. The people who were doing the work were the people who had seats at the drafting table. What would the features look like? How much work was involved? How much should the team commit to? Too much, and they would have burnout. Too little, and they would have boredom. That's the purpose of Agile, to have a nice, steady sprint with the team itself evaluating how things are going every 2 weeks. The relationship between a developer and a software tester shouldn't be one of an art critic and an artist. It should be more like one between a writer and a copy editor, both of them working together to create a quality product. With Agile, not only did I have a seat at the table, I was working shoulder to shoulder with the user experience folks. Get this, I discovered they would come up with various profiles of the customer bases and turn them into personas. They were also coming up with backgrounds for these personas, user stories. It was as if the design team and the user experience team had drafted up characters and handed me their character sheets. As a dungeon master, do you know how exciting this was for me? I could now create a mental model of the customer and bring that model through the entire software development process and test everything against that model. I could use that model to test the business requirements, the software product, and even my own assumptions about what should and should not be. While testing, I could now anticipate customers' needs, how they would enter the site, how they would navigate it. Armed with this information about how people expected the customer to behave, I could then picture how the customer could go off the beaten path, where most of the bugs truly lie. And that, my friends, is why I have the passion for software testing that I do. And that has been the secret for my success in the software testing field. With software testing, I use all my creativity, all my improvisational skills, and all of my creative energy, just like when I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons. Thank you for listening to me, and happy testing.